Tan,
Here.
Student Trustee Miles,
Here.
Student Trustee Slater Santos,
Here.
Trustee Lee,
Here.
Cho,
Here.
Trustee Tahada,
Here.
Vice President Walker,
Here.
President Gallegos.
Here. All right, moving on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Unless there are any changes, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, if there are no corrections or amendments, is there a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes for November 4th and November 13th of 2025?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to communications with our board report, and we're going to start with our student advisors. Westmore High School, Caitlin?
So this past week, there was a robotics competition at Sequoia. There's also winter ball with a good turnout. There was food fair where a lot of clubs made profit. There's also the botany and AP bio field trips. There's also the American math competition on November 5th. There were TEDx signups. Tomorrow there is a class of 27 knockout game. There's also an elective fair this week. There's also open house for 8th graders last Thursday. There's a Key to College trip, which was a Key Club field trip to Berkeley. There's also cross-country CCS last Saturday.
Thank you. All right, appreciate that. We'll move on to Jefferson High School. Edward?
Couple weeks ago, our football team won their first playoff game in 15 years, 40-17. They'll go to Piedmont Hills in San Jose this Saturday. Paseo Club held a UC Berkeley field trip. SF Admit Day was on Thursday. Grizzly Game Nights is holding a Clash Royale tournament. There was a robotics tournament at Terra Nova 2 weeks ago. The next one will be at Sequoia this Saturday. And that's it.
At Terra Nova, we recently hosted a robotics competition and got 3rd place. Our football team made playoffs and we won our first CCS game last Friday. And this Saturday, we have our 2nd CCS game in Sobrato. We had a band competition last weekend as well. Our fall play recently opened and we have more shows this Friday and Saturday. Last week, journalism had a field trip to SF State, and we also had a field trip to tour Berkeley University, and we had our open house last Thursday.
Thank you, Bianca. We don't have anybody from Oceana here at the moment. Nobody from Thornton will be here tonight, so we'll move it on over to our board. Andy Lee?
Not a whole lot, other than I know we've all got the California School Boards Association conference coming up in a couple of weeks up in Sacramento. And just one little thing, earlier this year, I had the opportunity to be able to speak in Sacramento on behalf of AB 1021, Educator Workforce Housing. Assemblymember Buffy Wicks was able to speak about it in front of both the Assembly Housing Committee, Assembly Local Government, and Senate Local Government. And really great to see that that bill did pass and signed by the governor a couple months ago, which will allow further streamlining for education workforce housing projects statewide. So it's pretty cool to see this amazing coalition of organizations and union members, et cetera, come together to support this bill.
Yeah, that's huge. Thank you, Andy. Marty?
Nothing to report.
All right. Miss Rosie?
So this past week, we attended Terra Nova's school site board meeting. It was really good to hear from the staff, all the great things that they're doing there. Really impressed with especially how they're piloting the cell phone. What do we call it? Yonder pouches. Yeah, really very well thought out. And then hearing from them on their concerns, which we do need to hear, so we know how to do things better. And then also attended the Westmore Open House for 8th grade families. It was wonderful. Mr. Zhao did a great presentation. The performances, of course, were amazing. I think I was actually on hand to answer some enrollment questions for parents, which was great. There was a parent who has a 7th grader and is really wanting to get into Westmore. So going to all the open houses in our district was just fantastic to hear. We had our board study session this Saturday, and I'm looking forward to us all having great goals for this coming year. And a few of us went to the Thornton site validation meeting for Model Continuation High School, where we basically talked about how much we love Thornton and how it's so deserving of this accolade. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Rosie. Shuit.
I also was at the school site board meeting at Terra Nova, and I just want to commend them on, I think it might not just be, the high school, the staff and the administration, which are fantastic, but I think the students themselves have a new little group that's taken some leadership about school spirit. And I forget what they're called, but I think it's fantastic. Other than that, I have nothing to report. Things are not as they seem.
Thank you, Shuit.
Hey, you're the one who brought him onto this board. I was kidding. You're French. Oh, my goodness.
So,
There's a whole voting process.
Translator.
all right. Yeah, so just to touch a little bit more on the Terra Nova school site board meeting. It was really interesting to see how well their no cell phone policy is doing over there, and the feedback that the staff gave us on what they're seeing, from all their students as far as testing and their scores and things that are just kind of starting to, do well with that policy. Kids getting back to, being kids, talking to each other in classrooms, being noisy, whatever, that kind of thing. And the focus that they're showing in class is really good. So I'm looking forward to hopefully, implementing that throughout the district at some point, while we're here. But that was good stuff. Also went to the Westmore Open House, and the opening performance by that choir was pretty amazing, I must say. It's pretty impressive how well those kids can sing and kind of entertain everybody like that. So it was a great open house, really informative. Did a really good job at getting parents and kids to go around to different parts of the school and interact with the students that were there, that were very well informed on all the clubs and things that were going on at school. You had to get stamps to make sure you were going out and getting all your, getting it in everywhere and show that you were participating. And so I really like that, actually. And I was really kind of bummed out I didn't get to go to all the open houses, but definitely want to make sure I do that next year. The board study session this past weekend was great. I was at the Jeff playoff game last Friday, so that was awesome. As an old Jeff head myself, and for them to be in the playoffs after this long, and I just had to go down there and support a good friend of mine that I went to school with, Amani Stewart, is the coach there, and he's really, he's taken that team to a good place right now. So I'm super stoked for him on that.
So don't you have to go on Saturday to support them again?
If it was a home game, I would, yes. We went to student advisory last night. It was really cool watching the kids do these make-up handshakes with each other and kind of do a little team bonding kind of thing. That was cool. And then the highlight for me was also going to the Thornton site validation team meeting this morning. Was that this morning? Yeah. Yesterday morning, I'm sorry. And kind of partake in that whole discussion on Thornton and, trying to get this site validation team to award them what's called the Model Continuation High School status for California. And we had an update from Denny saying that he was happy to let everybody know that the high school did advance to the next round. So those are a lot of cool things happening in the district, and I was a little bit busy this week, which I'm happy about. Got to do a lot of stuff, so thank you, and we'll move on to Tony Preston for our superintendent report.
Thank you. So that was a lot of what I was going to say was what you guys, I was at many of the things that you were at. I'm really proud and excited that Thornton moved on to the next round at the state. It's really, I mean, we don't do this for sort of accolades, but it feels really nice when people see the good work that our schools are doing. So that's very exciting. Another thing I want to mention is that Daly City Youth Health Center has been working for, gosh, it seems like a few years now, but has made a lot of progress in the last 6 months. And they're changing their name. So I'm not going to unveil that now. That's not my prerogative, but I'm really excited. They have a beautiful logo. They've got a really wonderful team working on it. The daughter of one of our directors, Denise Shreve, Maddie, what's Maddie's last name? Maddie Howard is amazing. She's been leading a lot of the work, and I'm just really excited for that. So I think that they're going to unveil the name within the next month or so, I think. I'm looking at Marty. Is it about the next month or so?
Still being decided if it's going to be January or February.
Okay.
But date is still TBD.
Yeah. But it's very exciting. Let's see what else. I also wanted to say that the Superintendent's Association meets every month. We used to always meet at the Community College District, and this year we decided that it would be a better idea to get out to the districts. And so we contemplated going to a new district every month. And then we decided that would get too confusing. So we're flip-flopping between our school district and Sequoia. And it's been really nice to have my colleagues in this county see our beautiful district office and kind of realize that Jefferson Union High School District is the best place to be. So that's happening this Friday. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Presto. Moving on to 5C, are there any board subcommittee reports this evening? All right. Then we will turn it over to Ms. Monica Casey with the AFT Local 1481 report.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I just have two little things. It is Transgender Awareness Week, and on Wednesday is Transgender Remembrance Day for those who have passed or been, murdered. So I just want to bring that to our attention, and there are some toolkits that teachers can use, or people can go on GLSEN's site and get some information. So I just wanted to bring that up. So thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, cruising along, we'll move on to consent agenda. Unless any of my fellow board members wish to remove an item for consent for discussion, I'll now entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Is there any public comment this evening?
We have no public comment.
All right, so let's get to the discussion items. So we'll start with 9A1, which is our board reorganization meeting. I'm sorry, let's see where we at here. Oh, is that you, Tony, I think? Yeah, Superintendent Tony Presto.
So sorry, I got a message from a student trustee, and I looked at it. Eva Imperato is not going to be here for Oceana tonight, so my apologies. Where are we in the agenda?
Sorry, we are on discussion items A1, the board reorg meeting. 9A1.
9A. Thank you. Let me get I so apologize. See, I didn't look at messages during the meeting. So pursuant to Ed Code 35143, the board must conduct its annual reorganization meeting to select board officers. This year, the organizational meeting must be conducted within the first 20 days of December. And so the board tonight needs to select a mutually agreeable date. And just to let you know, December 16th falls within that acceptable range, and that is our regularly scheduled board meeting. We have canceled the second because we're going to be at CSBA. So it's my recommendation that we do it on the 16th.
Cool. Thank you, Tony. Are there any questions or comments on that?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. It'll be on the 16th. Thank you.
All right. 9B1. Oh, this is our school spotlight, Westmore High School. We'll turn this over to our Deputy Superintendent of Educational Services, Ms. Kareem Baca.
Good evening, President Gallegos. Good evening, members of the board. This evening, I am very happy to introduce Westmore High School's principal, Victor Zhao, who will be highlighting the great things that is happening at Westmore High School. Mr. Zhao.
Thank you, Ms. Baca, and thank you everybody for being here, and thank you to my audience. I appreciate it. I did consider bringing my vice principals here.
It's the online audience too.
That's right. Wherever you are, I think my vice principals are watching. I did tell them they should not be here tonight because they've been doing a lot of late nights tonight. So I think I have 15 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna try to stick to that. First of all, thank you everyone for being here. Can I move here? Can I advance? Perfect. I want to go ahead and give an overview in general of where the school is at right now, based on the latest data we have, and also what we have in front of us, where we're headed this school year. Just kind of give a brief overview of what I will try to cover. I'll go through our school vision for this year. I will go ahead and give an overview of how we're doing in terms of our academics. I have some data to provide when it comes to our CASP testing and also some of our grades that have just been posted about a week ago. I will go over some details when it comes to our climate and culture, and I'll close with what we've been working on when it comes to student socio-emotional health. So I want to start off first with the vision that I have set for the school year and kind of the phrase that ties a lot of what we've been trying to do this school year together. There is one phrase, and it's right there on the top, that I've been repeating ad nauseum, like over and over and over this year when I have conversations with my staff, when I have conversations with parents and with students. It is that here at Westmore, we look out for one another. And it's the idea that in that question, or sorry, in that statement, there are different things that we as adults and staff have to consider when it comes to caring and teaching and helping to raise really young people in our school. I have some questions there that me and my administrative team have been asking ourselves this year, coming from that statement. For example, what does it mean to care for students as not just students, but as young people, as scholars, and also future members of our local community? How are we going to support our students to reach high expectations, not only when it comes to academics, but also when it comes to maturity and also resilience and their ability to tackle challenges later on in life? What does it also mean to cultivate a culture of listening? We've been thinking and talking a lot about how we should consider listening to our students more. And also as a leadership team, as an administrative team, how do we make sure that we listen to our staff and also to our student body? And lastly, how do we keep student and staff safety as our highest priority? We've been thinking about not just physical safety, but also the safety and the mental well-being of many of our most marginalized and vulnerable students, particularly our students learning English, who this year are facing challenges in some ways very much unprecedented with the increased pressure from immigration authorities. I want to start off first, talk a little bit about academics. Let me explain a little bit about some of these charts because they can be a little bit confusing. I apologize. But the different colors here represent different CASP scores over the last few years, going from 2018, and I skip the COVID years because the data is a little funky. I want to go ahead and just kind of provide some of this to give some context for how Westmore is doing when it comes to the California state average and our district's average. So as you can see here, the CASP score, each score represented, each percentage represents how many students are exceeding or at state standard. And so last year, at the end of the school year, in 2025, spring 2025, 66% of Westmore students were at or above state proficiency when it came to English language arts. That's about 2/3 of our students. And it's a strong point. I'm definitely really proud of that. It definitely shows a lot of the hard work that our English teachers have been doing, but also, honestly, there's been a big focus from our whole staff to center literacy in all of our subjects. So how are we teaching key terms? How are we teaching different forms of writing explicitly in biology, in different areas of our arts classes, things like that. And when it comes to math, I want to also point out this trend line over here. So in the past year, in spring 2025, about 38% of Westmore students were at or above state proficiency. Now, this is closely tracking, much more closely tracking the district and state average of 33 and 37%. It's definitely, for me, something that I've been thinking about a lot. Hello, Mrs. G. You're not supposed to be here. I think that it's something that it's data that, first of all, I've brought to the math department at Westmore, and I have talked about quite a bit with our administrative team in terms of how we want to go ahead and focus our attention supporting students, particularly when it comes to math. I'll talk a little bit about some of the ways we're doing that. I also, just one last little piece of data, I have collected basically the amount of A's, B's, and C's that Westmore, we've been issuing for each grading period in the fall semester. So on the left side, the gray bars represent for grading period 1 and 2, how many A's, B's, and C's we have issued. And that is in total for all of the classes that our students are taking. So last year, 2024, in grading period 1, we had 6,500 A's, B's, and C's, 6,600 in the second grading period. And just to kind of show a frame of reference, this school year, we've seen an increase. We're at about 7,100 A, B's, and C's in the first grading period, 7,100 in the second grading period. It's a jump up, and it's an improvement, and I think there's still some work to do. I want to also just kind of highlight for our students learning English, this has been a slight jump up, but I still see, honestly, work to do. I think that when it comes to supporting our students learning English, the grade data here kind of shows that although there's been an increase, not as much of an increase compared to the overall student body average. And on the other hand, when we're looking at the data for our students in special education, there has been a bit more of a significant increase from last year to this year. There are about 487 or 455 A's, B's, and C's for the grading periods this year versus 416 and 409 last year. And it's good data. I'm quite pleased with that. Again, I still think that there's more work to be done. I think that the initiatives that we're doing this year, some of them are, well, actually not all of them, they're very much informed by the data points that I just showed you. So, for example, when it comes to our students learning English, great thing you're here, Mrs. Yee, but we have been really focusing this year on using the time that we have in flex, during our flex periods, wisely and more intentionally. So that means, for example, if you're a student learning English at Westmore and you've been struggling in some of your classes, we've been using our counselors, our teachers, our administrators to go ahead and specifically plan these flex sessions where they're not only, students learning English are not only getting academic support, but they're also getting language support at the same time in those flex sessions with a bilingual aid. So if you are a student that speaks Spanish, it's very helpful to have a paraprofessional who also speaks Spanish to help you translate, to help you get caught up on work. In general, too, we are using Flex more proactively this year to target students who are displaying some early warning signs, particularly in freshman year. I know as a former teacher that if you are getting an F in the first grading period and getting an F in the second grading period, 9 times out of 10, you might be in danger of getting an F in the third grading period. And so when we start to see some of these warning signs of low grades in the earlier grading periods, we've started to prioritize scheduling those students into the classes they are failing, making sure that they have priority seating, and also they kind of get that extra guidance to make sure they are spending time with the classes they need the most. We are also focusing, like I said, early interventions on our 9th grade students. So this year, I think we're the first school to go ahead and try out pushing out digital report cards. Thank you very much, Ms. Baca, for letting us do that. That's just an extra communication we're using with parents to bug them a little bit, but remind them also just regularly about how students are doing in all of their classes. And like I said earlier, the freshman academic support through our targeted flex classes is not just in 1 or 2 subjects. It's in English, math, and biology. These are not just core classes for freshmen, but they are the ones that also have, coincidentally, the most Fs historically at Westmore. When it comes to, I want to move on to talk about climate and culture. I have a chart up here that displays essentially the number of suspensions from August through October for the past 4 school years, including this one. So there are a couple of factors. First of all, I just want to point out there's a big trend upwards last school year and a big corresponding drop this school year. I want to talk a little bit about why. I think that last school year we had a lot of change with a new bell schedule, and with that came a new class for everybody to learn, flex. It also became a 7-period day versus a 6-period day. There were a ton of moving parts. Teachers are figuring out their curriculum again. Students were also figuring out how school is going to look like from the ground up. And so there was a lot of shuffle. And I think in that shuffle, it was tough for us to continue a lot of those supports, a lot of the interventions we normally would have. There was also, there was turnover at the top of the school too. I am the new principal here, or I was the new principal. And so with that, I think, again, there's just a lot of focus on necessary transition and a lot of things that were taking up our time and energy. This year, we have also really redoubled our effort and attention. I want to thank the vice principals and the counseling team really helping us to identify what are the underlying conditions for not just misbehavior, but suspensions, detentions, all kinds of disciplinary behaviors. I think that the strong report card data is indicative, the strong report card data from this year coupled with the lower suspension numbers are definitely correlated. We all know that if students are not performing as well as they can in classrooms, they're more likely to be disengaged. And when you're more likely to be disengaged, you're much more likely to get in trouble. And so I'm very much heartened by the data right here, actually. There's one thing I'd want to point out that's not on this chart that I'm really proud of. Of those 19 suspensions this year, 0 are freshmen. 0. And I have a little bit of a theory as to why in a second. Some other data when it comes to our climate and culture at Westmore. The first question, all these questions, first of all, are from the California Healthy Kids Survey that we completed at the end of last school year. The first question comes from some of the parent data that actually we went ahead and collected. The columns on the left represent the most current data. Columns on the right that are not colored are is kind of for comparison, the school year 23-24. As you can see, a lot of improvement in many of these areas. I want to point out especially we've seen big improvement in the amount of students that are reporting they're experiencing chronic sadness or hopelessness. Those numbers are down. I also want to point out that the feelings of campus safety are up, that students are reporting that the campus feels safer overall. And also that our staff, our administration treats students with respect. We're seeing an upward trajectory in all of these categories up on top. On the other hand, there are some rooms for growth. I think that if you look at these three sections about caring adult relationships, school connectedness, and meaningful participation, our students are reporting that they don't tend to have strong adult relationships to go to, that they may not feel connected to school or their classes, and that they many times may not feel like they can actively participate in the life of the school. And so through the National Equity Project, I want to thank Superintendent Presta for this. A lot of our schools this year have been going through this equity design team process. And so how that showed up for us at Westmore is that we have made it a goal this year to begin to prototype a new system through which our staff will begin to host listening sessions with their students. We went ahead and took some first steps with this by working through our staff and student equity teams. Our staff team, which is about 8 different staff members, teachers, counselors, classified staff, they are going out right now and collecting different students, all of them students learning English right now, and in groups of 5 to 8, hosting listening sessions, trying to understand what is the student experience like and what are our students' sense of belonging. These questions that they're asking will eventually go out to the rest of our staff, and the idea is that we're kind of modeling that first step so that our teaching staff and our faculty at large can take steps this year towards a much more bigger step with all of our teachers kind of listening to students in a very structured, in a very, I think, fruitful way, kind of understand what's the student experience like? How can we help students feel like they belong at Westmore? I want to point out we have some ongoing initiatives here as well. Link Crew is a new program this year. We're very happy to introduce Mr. Michael Simon, our student activities director, teaches the Link Crew class and organizes a lot of that along with Mr. Austin Warden, our 9th grade vice principal. It's a peer mentoring system where upperclassmen are paired with freshman students. The leaders go ahead and actually mentor the same students throughout the year while the rest of their small group continue to kind of rotate through different groups of freshmen throughout the year. And so through this, every freshman student at Westmore not just gets a chance to have a mentor, but actually gets multiple encounters and multiple meetings with an older mentor. This is, I think, a very big part of the reason why the suspension data has not just gone down, but does not include freshmen this year. It's a big reason why. Not only is the mentoring kind of serving as a way for for students to get help and support from peers, it's also, I think, becoming a really great way to inform us as adults also how we can support freshman students, because now we have almost like older advocates for them who may be letting us know, hey, the person I've been working with, the person I've been, I've met with a couple times, they really need some help with this, or they really could use this as a support. I want to thank also Mrs. Yi, who is right over here, for actually heading up our Students Learning English leadership team. There's a few of them getting awarded right there. We have essentially almost like a parallel student government of sorts, where these are students learning English themselves, many of them recent immigrants or newcomers. They go ahead and plan out, along with our staff, how do we set up a pipeline for new students who come in? How do we give them tours? How do we make sure that they get set up with the right resources? How do we make sure that if you are a newcomer student from Colombia, from Myanmar, from anywhere else in the world, somebody, an older student, preferably here at Westmore, is going to take you in, is going to show you around the school. They're going to speak preferably the same language, home language as you, And they're going to tell you all the things you need to know, like where are the bathrooms? How do you get lunch here? Where do you get your PE clothes? All the essential stuff that I think we take for granted that our students will come in with the knowledge with. Some other ongoing initiatives, just to quickly point out, we have been this year redoubling and expanding our efforts to provide produce and hot meals to a lot of our most vulnerable families. We call it the Tea Market. It's housed in the Tea building. And our campus supervisor, Zari Denegri, has been really pivotal in gathering community support. We have almost every day produce and fresh groceries for students. We prioritize access for students who we know are either transitionally housed, unhoused, perhaps their families are struggling financially. This upcoming week, actually, we're going to be receiving about 60 Thanksgiving family meals that we plan to hand out to our students, prioritizing, again, families that we know that are going to really benefit from having a full family meal over the holidays. I've been really knocking on doors, I feel like, with Parent Square this year. I not only send out my weekly newsletter to parents, every time a student gets above a certain amount of tardies, parents might get a text from me about, hey, just a heads up, your student's been, late to class. If there are certain announcements, like, for example, Winter Ball was last weekend, I sent out a text and email reminder to parents about, hey, here's some reminders to keep your students safe and make sure they have a great time. I've been texting parents a lot this year. I've been emailing a lot this year. And so far, the feedback's been good. Parents are definitely, I think, enjoying and appreciating the ability to be texted, to have that instantaneous message and update. Lastly, we do have a school-wide cell phone policy, a little different from Terra Nova, no pouches, but this is our first year with a school-wide cell phone policy when it comes to how we expect students to use their phones, when it's not allowed to be used, and structures to support our teachers to guide our students in controlling the technology that they carry with themselves. Comes to social emotional health, just really briefly, I think I'm short on time. The data over here supports that there's been a large reduction when it comes to student-reported substance abuse. In every category here, tobacco, marijuana, alcohol, or drug use, every category has seen a dip. I would attribute that to our strong partnership with Daly City Youth Health Center, or perhaps by a different name soon, and their Inspire program, where we basically have a conference with the parents. We tell the student, hey, as an alternative to suspension, we are requiring you to go through mandatory drug counseling. We're going to support that by having it here at school, where it's going to be anonymous, one-on-one. It'll be confidential. And we found success with that. We have found a lot of success with that. And I believe this is my last slide. I want to highlight that data point about students who are experiencing chronic sadness or hopelessness. In kind of response to this, we know that this is something that it's not just a one-time data point, it's something we need to continue working on. Our counseling team has continued to offer regular flex offerings on mindfulness, art therapy, different ways for students to de-stress and to relax during the school day. We have started young men and young women's groups, and this has been really a fantastic way for many of our students to kind of engage with positive role models and talk about gender norms in a healthy way. I actually just stopped by one of our young men's groups hosted by our school social worker, Mr. Martinez, and they're talking about toxic masculinity and how that kind of shows up in behavior nowadays. I thought it was fantastic. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, we're very aware of the heightened threat that our immigrant students and families are facing. We have most recently begun producing and making our own in-house red cards. We did this last year. We're continuing to do that this year and distributing to our families. We had a school-wide lesson not too long ago where every teacher on campus joined the same Zoom meeting, and they got to hear Mr. Zhao give a short lesson on kind of what's going on right now in the world, how we can look out for one another here at school. What are we as a staff doing to make sure that students feel safe here on campus? And I, again, have been messaging a lot to families about that issue, how they can seek support, how they can reach out to the local immigration hotline for legal aid, for emergency support. Just double checking, that is my last slide. And that's about it for me. Thank you. I've been told that I should be open for questions.
Yeah, hang tight. That was
Yes.
yeah. That was we're definitely going to open it up for questions for sure. Thank you for that awesome presentation. And thank you for taking the time to put that all together. It's a lot of data, and I think everybody knows we're really data driven around here. So that's good stuff. I'll open it up to our student advisors if they'd like to, comment, or if you guys have any questions, feel free to give it a go. We'll start with Caitlin, if you have anything to say.
No, I do not.
Okay. Edward?
No, I do not.
All right. Bianca?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Okay, we'll open it up to our board then. We'll start with Andy Lee down there.
All right. Hold on a sec. This thing looks, it's a little loose mic. All right. Wow. You've set the bar for your fellow principal colleagues. So the subsequent principals, I think, will have a high bar to meet when they present on their school. So kudos, fantastic presentation. Thinking about just your primary comment at the start, we look out for one another. And that theme is just embedded in the entirety of this presentation and in everything that you do. It's really clear that what you say is what you're actually doing. I mean, the statement itself is easy to remember, but the execution of that statement is much more difficult. And it's pretty clear that there's this care and empathy that comes through. And in a world right now where empathy is sorely lacking, the fact that this is the number one thing that you express to staff and to the larger Westmore community is powerful. There's so much I want to say and unpack, but I do have a couple of key questions here. One, related to the total grade data, I appreciate you showing for everybody as well as for two of the subgroups. So, but you've opened that door. So now, would it be possible to see the breakdown by subject? Could we see a breakdown by ethnic subgroup as well, right? By ethnic subgroup, by subject, we can just keep on going down the rabbit hole, but I think it would be powerful just to see what that year over year breakdown looks like and where the real gaps are. In a presentation that is so equity focused and in the school that is clearly equity focused, it's powerful. It's really great for us to be able to see that level of data. And then, when I was on campus with Superintendent Presta a couple of weeks ago, when we came in, it happened to be the flex period. So it was powerful to be able to walk in and actually see what's going on during flex time, because I've heard about it at each of the schools, but to actually see it in action is powerful. And I think the first classroom we popped into was the one making the red cards. So I'm so glad that she mentioned it, because
That was not a setup. That was
yes, indeed. So kudos to you and to the staff and to the team at Westmore for an incredible job that you're doing. It's clearly showing up in the data. It's also clear that the training that you've gone through, as a team with National Equity Project and others has put you in a position where it's embedded in the way you approach things, and it's an inherent part of the personality and culture of the school. I mean, even what you were just saying about the SLE leadership and creating the pathways for newcomer students, that by itself is, that's outstanding and phenomenal. Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I knew we did right hiring you. 100%.
Amazing presentation. I love numbers. I get nice and fuzzy when I see numbers. And like Andy said, we can go deeper and deeper. I'm more of just like a macro level, just looking at these. I would have liked to know a little bit like the distribution between like A's and B's and C's. To then we can then say, okay, you know, the C's, we need to improve those to B's. The B's, we need to improve those to A's, right? So we want to be an A school, 100%, right? With that, the program that you have for the buddy system, genius, absolutely genius. And the pairing system where students come in, I wish I had something like that as a first generation immigrant when I came to this country. Just having somebody my age, my peer, who could speak my language at a certain age gap, because my parents would not speak the same language, even if we speak the same language. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think this is something truly powerful, and really, I don't know of any other schools in the country that have even putting a system like this in place. So really capitalize on this. If we can pull this through and really get some data to back it up, I actually think you can develop a framework for this and publish it. No pressure. And then last but not least, the buddy system for college, for seniors and juniors, absolutely brilliant. I'm going to challenge you to not have that extend to college. When the seniors graduate and go to college, have a way for them to maintain that relationship with the kids that are still, now they were juniors, now they become seniors. Really kind of like preparing them for what the real world holds out to them. Mm. And even push it even further and say, hey, even when they graduate 4 years, now they have a real model, a mentor or something. Just, I know when they go to college, they're not within your realm, but kind of presenting that to them, I think would be really powerful. Otherwise, amazing work. Keep crushing it.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Really great presentation. Thank you for, it is really evident that you're very equity focused, and this is where I want to thank you for joining the National Equity Project, putting in that work. That's extra work for you. But I think that I don't think you consider it extra work, you know. It's a lot of time and effort that you put into it, but I don't think you view it that way, because you're constantly investing in the school and the community and the students. When you say that you text the parents, is that through
That's through
Parent Square?
Yes.
That's through Parent Square. That's wonderful. You take the time to do that, and that you're trying to not let kids fall through the cracks. Every little, because, you know, the parents are now getting younger, so they don't look at emails. They look at text messages. So I think that is a very valuable tool. I would also, just little things like, I also, like Mr. Lee, would like to see some more disaggregated data by subgroup, and, you know, the CAS participation rates. I would imagine you probably had a higher participation in the 90s, probably.
Yes. Last year, I think 97%.
Yeah. That's fantastic, because when my son was at Westmore, this is where the kids were like, well, I don't want to take it. So, but this is fantastic. I really think that's great. Let's see, the digital report cards, how often do you do that? And how is it transmitted?
Yeah. So there's a legacy function on Synergy, which is our student info system, to produce basically ready to mail, like physically mail report cards. Coupled with that, what we did was we generated reports for that, and then on Parent Square, there's a function to go ahead and through their secure document portal, send out individual PDFs from that document, as long as there's a pre-identified field for the student IDs. And so it ends up being a little work to go ahead and basically make sure everybody's getting the right report card. You don't want anybody getting someone else's. But I've found, so what we started to do is just once every grading period, so every 6 or 7 weeks. But that's allowed at least multiple times a semester, parents getting a text and an email and a notification on their app saying there's an update, please double check this. And then that becomes conversations of, now as a parent, I'm wondering, right? I have questions, or there's, how do I reach out to a teacher? How do I get in contact with somebody? It's starting those processes earlier than the semester's end.
And that's for every student?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. And it seems like it's kind of a manual process. Somewhat.
Yes.
Yes and no.
Thankfully, not like one by one, but it is it is a process. Yeah, we're
there are a
figuring
few
it out.
steps.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic because you always. I was a parent who was always on Parent View. I was constantly looking on there.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of parents who can't. Open houses or back to school night. We'd always have always try to get parents to come over and learn how to use it, but that's hard. So I think with these constant reminders and that you're actually sending them out once a quarter or every few weeks, that's really amazing. Because it takes, it's when your parent tells you, hey, what's going on in that class of yours? What can we do to help you? Can you talk to me about what's going on in that class? Because they think that they're, I'm going to rat out my son here. He was struggling in a class and he was trying to get his grade up, but I caught it. And so I was able to have the conversations with him. And he didn't want me to see it, but I saw it. And then Ms. Baca was his counselor, so she helped him too. But I think that's really amazing that you're doing that. The SLE leadership, fantastic. And it really empowers the role models, the students. They're actually their peers. And so that empowers these students to be the role models. And it's tough to be a newcomer, right? And there's so many different languages at Westmore. I met one of the Green Hats, and she was part of the Burmese club. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I knew a few years ago that was ethnic group that was on the rise. The population was rising, especially at Westmore. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate that I think we all here are embracing protecting our immigrant families. It's such a scary time. And I really applaud you for making that at the forefront. Always thinking about, keeping our students safe. That's super important. Let's see. So I don't want to go. I think this. I'm just kind of curious about what the suspensions look like, and the disaggregated data on that would be helpful. And are these in-class suspensions, or it's just like disciplinary things?
Yes, good question. These are out-of-school suspensions.
Okay.
So not including ISS, which is the code we use for in-school. There is some pretty interesting data on the demographic breakdown. I personally, with the admin team, have looked at interestingly, kind of what are the most common denominators when it comes to the reason for suspension. And so just to kind of share, off the top of my head, is one of the biggest things is bullying. And this is all encompassing when it comes to somebody verbally saying something to you versus something you see perhaps on social media during school, or some more direct or indirect forms of bullying. I think that's kind of a big focus for us right now with our wellness team too, is how do we kind of detect that early and how do we address that in a timely manner?
That's great. Okay, thank you. Great presentation. Good work over there, you and your staff and your teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wrote down a few things, and the theme seems to be that you continue to seek opportunities to improve. And while you're doing that, you continue to mention students, families, community, vice principals. And it's as if you've provided not only a chance for leadership to be provided, but you've also identified the people to provide it. And you're looking for people who need help. And I quarterly bring up my first CSBA AEC conference, where the keynote speaker says, the most important thing you can do in education, I'm paraphrasing, is to love enough to do something effective. And I think that that's what you're talking about here. And I commend you for it. Congratulations on name checking your leaders. You talked about the VPs, you talked about your activities director, you're talking about your whole team at Westmore, and your students as well, who you've turned into leaders. I hope, and I imagine you have a plan for this, that these people you've talked about vulnerable populations, freshmen, English language learners, talked about newcomers. I hope maybe they have a chance to return that leadership to other students. So thank you, and nice job, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you.
Man, now I get to go after all that. So I just want to start off by saying the one thing that stood out to me, and it's, coming from a parent of kids, the one thing I think we want most for our kids is for people to care about them, no matter where they're at and who they're with, who they're around, because we can't always be there for them when they need it, right? And they spend a lot of time at school. And so you did a great job at showing us that you and your staff care for your kids and our kids, the community. And I appreciate that about what you're doing there. And you haven't even been there that long, so you're just getting started. And this is good stuff for us to hear coming back from your site. And the looking out for one another thing, that's something I always tell my kids. I got your back. I don't care what anybody else says, what anybody else does. I got your back. I always tell them that, because I want them to know that. So for you to be sticking that in their heads like that and really pounding it in and making that, the kind of thesis of everything that you're doing there at Westmore, it's awesome. I really love to hear that. I thought it was really creative, kind of how you're aggregating data with the ABCs thing. I thought that was pretty cool, a different take on how we're getting feedback from, how things are going there. I was also kind of curious about like is there like a goal mark for your ABCs data? Like, have you set some sort of, where do I need to be kind of thing? Or are you just kind of starting to aggregate that data?
That's a good question. Yes, actually, so the grade data is not this is not necessarily the number that me and the vice principals look at the most. Actually, Dr. He knows this too, because I've talked about this so much, is we actually look at the inverse more often. We look at our D's and F's actually a lot more often. And we're trying to what we're doing is we're kind of breaking it down even further by looking at which subjects, which courses tend to be the ones that our students are struggling with the most. And then beyond that, what we can do is also look at, well, which classes are each demographic of our students struggling with the most, right? One thing I'll point out, for example, was that for some reason, as I was looking through the data, I was like, wait, we're getting a lot of Fs from students learning English in PE, in physical education. And a big part of physical education is dressing, making sure that you have and you consistently bring the PE uniform. And, I know that Dr. He and Mrs. Yi and Mr. Warden, we started asking ourselves, how well are we actually communicating that to our students, specifically to SLEs? Turns out that actually, this year, putting in some effort into that has borne a lot of fruit. I don't have the data to show for that yet, but the amount of students that are failing an essential class like physical education is way down. It's way down. We're not seeing students in the halls anymore without PE uniforms. We have a stash of on-site uniforms. I believe Mrs. Yi actually cleaned those herself last week, in her own laundry, and that's just a few things. We're trying to do.
Yeah, no, and that kind of segues into a couple things like how you're utilizing your flex time at school and kind of emphasizing, using that time for the students that are struggling instead of just kind of going there and using it as a break period or something like that, getting caught up on homework or whatever. I mean, which that's what it's good for, but I like that you're kind of focused in on using that time to actually get them, a little bit more in touch with their classes in that sense. And it also is the other part of that, what, like you're saying, as far as the communication, the way you are communicating, through your equity work there and giving the kids a voice is super important. I mean, I was just commenting on that yesterday when we were talking with at Thornton about, the importance of, you give a kid the option to speak up and use their voice, but it's one thing to just hear them out, but it's another thing to put something in action for them and see the results from them speaking up to motivate them to keep doing that, so that's great stuff. I'm just kind of touching on some points as we go. Let's see. Yeah, the link crew thing I thought was a really good thing too, and I know some of my colleagues touched on that. But for incoming freshmen, just having somebody to go to if they have questions or anything, just they're scared to ask questions. They at least have another student to talk to. One of the things that I was, going to mention about the Parent Square and the way you're communicating through that too is that was one of the biggest things for me. When that first came into play for my kids, it was so pivotal in the way I was able to kind of, keep track of what they were doing and help them. Just if I saw they were struggling, if I knew they were missing an assignment or whatever that was, that was just my way to be able to help them out from afar. And that's hard to do when you're not in it every day, like at school and stuff like you guys are. But the fact that you push it out as much as you do is super helpful, because most of the time as parents, we're just going in there to dig around. At least I was. It wasn't something I was getting these updates on. So for you to push that out like that as much as you do, that's awesome. Keep doing that, because we need to stay in touch with our parents, and let them know how their kids are doing. So. And then lastly, and I think everybody touched on it, but the way that you are but the way you are caring for your immigrant population, your immigrant students at school and the community, and the way that you're, trying to keep them safe and show them that they're safe there. I've said this before at other meetings, I can't imagine coming into another country and being completely foreign to everything and trying to figure it out and not really knowing or having the resources for myself to make myself comfortable enough to learn or just to, be present when, you're being taught something at school. So having that comfortability goes, miles and miles for these kids. So, but a lot of great stuff. Victor, I appreciate all your hard work, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, the progress that Westmore does. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Ms. Presto.
Thank you. First of all, before I start complimenting Westmore and Mr. Zhao, I'm proud of the comments that our school board has made about your presentation, because if you will notice the theme, empathy, kindness, love, caring, looking out for one another. So I'm super proud of our district because it really is permeating throughout all of our schools now. And that makes me very proud of our whole school district and of our working for a school board that cares about students so deeply. So I'm going to start with that.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Pardon me?
Attitude reflects leadership, Captain.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Walker. And I feel like your mom, Victor. I'm so proud of you. And I'm really so proud of you and your leadership and your growth in like a short year as principal. It's obvious and evident, and I'm so grateful that you're in this role. I also want to thank Mrs. Yee for being here with you tonight. I know that you did tell your other vice principals to stay home, and she disobeyed. But I too want to echo the sentiment that you have really called out your team, because there's something that we talk a lot about with National Equity Project, this idea of hero or host, hero leadership or host leadership. And the most effective leadership is when you are a host to others so that they can rise. And so that's quite evident. So again, thank you. Super proud. There were so many things to call out. I'm going to say a couple things. The student learning English leadership team, wonderful. It's evident also in your student advisors that are student trustees. They bring that same care for newcomers. They've talked about that in our meetings all the time. In fact, that's one of the subgroups that we're creating at the district level because of your Westmore students. I love that there's a focus on feeding those who need food. It has, I don't know, in my lifetime, not been so evident as right now how many people. We had a board study session on Saturday, and I drove up Southgate, and there was, I don't even know, a mile long, and they were older people, and it just, it's really important. All the time that people have food, but especially right now. I love that you're using Parent Square so well. I want to give a shout out to Miss Baca because she has really spearheaded this. And I also want to give a shout out to Miss Shreve, who has taken up the banner and working together to support the school sites. I'm old, and it was kind of confusing to me. And I was really happy that other people were leading it, but really happy that it was happening. I also like something like your signage out in front of Westmore. When I drive by, it's fabulous. Like, it's colorful, it's informative. I love it. You are really thinking about the community, and it's evident, and communicating well with your text messages. I'm really happy that you guys are doing Link Crew. I know that we've got it at Jefferson and Terra Nova. Really, really happy that you guys started it this year. I think it's so important, those freshmen coming in, being linked up with an older student. I could go on, but I will conclude because I think a lot has been said. Thank you for this presentation. I like what you chose to focus on. This is a new thing that we're doing this year, and I agree that you've set the bar high. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take my leave now. Thank you very much.
All right. That was good stuff. Okay. Where are we? Oh, Moving on to 9B2, the 2025 California School Dashboard Presentation. We'll turn it over to Deputy Superintendent of Educational Services, Ms. Kareen Baca.
Hello again, and I just want to let you know that if you like data, you're going to get a whole lot of data. And so this evening, I will be presenting the results from the 2025 California School Dashboard, and it's a very high-level data overview because there's a lot in this presentation. And I would like to let you know that at the bottom of this link is the California School Dashboard where all the data comes from, but it also has the detailed report. So I know that our board really would like to see the breakdown of subgroups. So I have the subgroup data for the district, and it's also broken down for each of the school sites. So this is for your reference. If you would like.
Thank you for doing that.
All right. So as a quick reminder, the dashboard is our statewide accountability system that brings together the requirements from the LCFF and federal ESSA requirements into just one integrated system. So let me make this bigger. All right. So in tonight's presentation, I'll give a brief overview of the dashboard, share JUHSD's results, and then some of the key takeaways. So the California School Dashboard is an online tool that shows how our district, our schools, and student groups are performing across several measures. It includes 6 state indicators and 7 local indicators. Local indicators are submitted directly by the district and only apply at the district level. On the dashboard, they show up as met, or not met for 2 years. The state indicators, however, come from the data in CalPADS, and that is the state's data management system, and also from our testing vendors for the assessment data. These appear as color gauges, ranging from red, which reflects the lowest performance level, all the way to blue, which is the highest level. Green is the minimum ideal color for all the indicators, and also for our student groups as well. So to determine a color, the dashboard looks at 2 things: the status, which is how we perform with the most current data, and the change, how that compares to the previous year. And each state indicator has a scale that is approved by the State Board of Education. So to give you an example, let's use our 2025 graduation rate indicator. The district received a green performance level with a 92.2% graduation rate, a 1.8 increase from the previous year. So that 92.2% places us in the high status range, and the 1.8 rise falls under the increased change level. So where the high status and the increased level intersect is how you get the performance color, which is green. So in summary, the performance color, again, is achieved by starting with the status for that year and then compare whether there is an increase, decrease, or maintain from the previous year. So before we dive into each state indicator, I want to start with the demographics for the 24-25 school year. And this is the data that the dashboard used. So it was from last year. So last year we had 3,715 students. Of those, 34.5% were socioeconomically disadvantaged, 15.4% were English learners, and 0.1% were foster youth. These subgroups make up what the state refers to as our unduplicated students. The chart also shows demographics for students with IEPs, as well as the breakdown of our student population by race and ethnicity. And here is the summary of the state and local indicators included in the dashboard, all aligned with the state priority areas identified by the State Board of Education. So here's a quick snapshot of how we perform across all dashboard indicators. We received orange for suspension, orange for English learner progress. We earn green for graduation rate, green for college and career, green for English language arts, and yellow for mathematics. And we met all of our local indicators. So let's take a closer look with the academic performance. So the English language arts academic indicator reflects how well students are meeting grade level standards based on the Smarter Balance Assessment exam and the California Alternate Assessment, both taken by 11th grade students in the spring. So the indicator basically uses the average distance from standard, which shows on average how far above or below the proficiency threshold students scored. Last year, our 11th graders scored 13.7 points above standard, which is a 9.6 increase from the year before. This is our second year in a row earning a green rating in ELA, and the trend continues to move in the right direction. I'm also pleased to share that we met the 95% participation rate for both ELA and math, so therefore we did not receive any penalty participation. On the right-hand side of the slide is just a snapshot for each of the student groups. And again, you can look at that more closely in the spreadsheet that I just shared earlier. So student groups only receive a color if there are 30 or more students in both the current and prior year. Student enrollment between 11 and 30 show a performance level but no color. And anything below 11, they do not show for privacy reasons. So I would like to point out also that in 2024, long-term English learners also became its own subgroup, and long-term English learners are defined as students who have not yet reached English proficiency within 7 years of enrollment at our schools. So here is the performance for our school sites and the distance from standard for all of their students. As you can see, most of our students increased their scores, and overall, Oceana, Terra Nova, and Westmore performed strongly, and Jefferson showed a solid improvement. For mathematics, the district earned a yellow and an improvement from orange from last year. Although we remain at 64.4 points below standard, we made a 13.6 points gain from the previous year. And also this slide highlights the performance of each student group. And as you can see, no student group receives a red performance level. Here's the performance per school site. And as you can see again, there was a significant increase for Jefferson, Oceana, and Thornton. For science, this is the first year that the dashboard reports colors. The indicators includes both scores from the California Science Test and the California Alternate Assessment for Science. For this year, this is only used for informational use only, so it is not used for accountability purposes. And the state has shifted distance from standard to using a scale of 0 to 100, which makes the results easier to interpret across grade levels. So district-wide, our students earn a green performance level with 54.6 science points, an increase of 7.3 from the previous year. Also included here are the performance levels for each of the school sites. So Terra Nova did not receive a color because they did not test, or they tested all of their students the previous year. So there was no group of students to test because the test can be given to grades 10, 11, and 12, and they did that the previous year. Next is the English Learner Proficiency Indicator, which comes from the summative LPAC or English Language Proficiency Assessments for California. Even though the test has 4 performance levels, the dashboard has broken it down further into 6 levels to show the typical 5 to 7 year growth toward English proficiency. The expectation is that students move up at least 1 level a year or hold steady at level 4. So this year, our English learner group is in the orange range, which with 39% showing progress. For long-term English learner, 45% made progress, which places them in the yellow range. Here is the performance per school site, and as you can see, we are orange at the major schools. The other 3 schools do not have enough students to generate a color. For the college and career indicator, it draws on several measures, which I will walk through in the next few slides. So overall, 59.6% of the class of 2025 were identified as college and career prepared. That is a 4.5 increase from the last year. And I'm happy to say that it is a 15-point increase since the indicator was first reported in 2018. Looking at the student groups, there are a couple of bright spots. So our English learners CCI rate increased from 18% in 2018 to 28.7% this year, which is almost an 11-point gain. Our students with IEP also made a lot of progress, rising from 11% prepared in 2018 to 17.4% this year. I know that there's still a lot of work to be done, but these upward trends show really a meaningful movement in closing opportunity gaps. Yes, Ms. Presto.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear. Did you say a 50% from what? 15. Thank you. I was like, what? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So
thank
great.
you. That is still really great. Yes, thank you.
That's our goal, 50 next time. All right, 50. Here's the data by school site. All of our schools are in the blue or green range, with the exception of Thornton. So Dr. Marenko and I talked about this, and since it's a continuation school, they don't really have much opportunity to take advanced placement classes or meeting the A through G. So while this may seem concerning, we see it really as an opportunity to co-design a program that better supports the continuation students in meeting the college and career indicator. So for example, we're looking at how do we increase career technical education support at Thornton and perhaps also dual enrollment. So here are the multiple ways students can meet the college and career indicator. They could earn it through college credits, meeting the A through G requirements, meeting the Smarter Balance scores, CTE pathway completion, advanced placement exam scores, or IB scores. And it can also be met through the state seal of biliteracy and other areas listed here. And in addition, the State Board of Education right now is evaluating whether to include the state seal of civic engagement as one of the measures in the near future. So here is how our class of 2025 students met the college and career indicator. For students who were deemed as prepared, the vast majority of them, 83%, got there by completing the A through G requirements. After that, the most common way was passing the AP exam and then meeting the standards in the Smarter Balance assessment. So when we look at the subgroups, we see similar patterns. For English learners, the most common pathway for them to being prepared was through the A through G requirements, with 76% meeting the indicator that way. For students with disabilities, the most common pathway was earning college credit through dual enrollment. And for a socioeconomically disadvantaged student, it was through the A through G pathway. So with academic engagement, graduation rate is the only indicator. So district-wide, 92.2% again of our students met the graduation rate, and this is 1.8 points above from last year. Most of our schools are in the green or blue performance level. And just letting you know that for a student to be counted as a graduate, they must receive a standard high school diploma or through the alternative pathway diploma for students with IEP. I just want to point out that for our students with disabilities, the graduation rate is 70.6%, which places them in the orange level. And even though it is a bit lower than last year, we have still made improvement, because back in 2019, before COVID, this group was graduating at 55%. So the long-term growth is pretty significant. Here is a trend for our graduation rate. As you can see, we've made steady progress since 2019 with a 3.1 increase overall. I talked earlier about the gains for students with disabilities, but I also want to highlight the progress for English learners, because in 2019, the graduation rate was 69.8%, and in 2025, it has risen to 83.9%. So this kind of growth shows that we are narrowing the gap for English learners. Their rate is now much closer to the overall graduation rate, which reflects the targeted supports and instructions happening across all of our schools. Here is the graduation performance for all of our schools. And I do want to point out that Oceana is in the yellow level this year. And that is because most of their students that were deemed as non-grad received their certificate of completion. And certificate of completion is not recognized as meeting the high school diploma. However, because we now have the alternative pathway to diploma that had just started, these students would have qualified for that. And so we will see that increase for next year. Now with conditions and climates, there's only one state indicator, Ms. Basquino's favorite, suspension rate. So the suspension rate indicator looks at the percentage of students who were suspended for at least one full day during the school year. Each student is only counted once. Even if they move schools, they're only counted as one. And also both in-school suspension and out-of-school suspensions are included. So for the dashboard, a student only counts toward the rate if their suspension add up to at least one full day. So if a student had two short suspensions, maybe 2 periods together, added up, because it is less than a day, they would not count in the numerator. So district-wide, our suspension rate is 4.2%, and this is an increase of 1.5 points from the previous year. When we look at the student groups, many are in the red and orange levels. So this is an area that requires deeper examination. We want to better understand the types of incidents contributing to suspensions and identify where alternative responses may be appropriate. We also need to closely examine any disproportionality to ensure that our practices remain fair, consistent, and equitable for all students. Earlier, Mr. Zhao talked about his suspension rate, and that could have been, the reason because of their transition with their bell schedule. So here is the suspension rate for each school, and you can see suspensions increase at most sites, and that is an area that we need to better understand. Here's a snapshot of our student groups performing across the district. We really need to pay special attention to our students learning English and students with disabilities. There have been gains, but they are not gaining enough. So we really need to focus on these 2 student groups because they are still lagging behind in many indicators. And some of the key takeaways. So this year, we're seeing several bright spots. Our district is green in English language arts, graduation rate, and college and career indicator, and we're continuing to see improvements in math. These gains reflect our sustained efforts on teacher collaboration, curriculum alignment, strong CTE pathways, expanded student opportunities, and critical support provided by our school counselors and wellness teams. At the same time, we have areas that need attention. Our suspension rate has increased across most sites, and our English language proficiency indicator shows that many English learners, especially long-term English learners, are not making progress the way we would like. So our improvement work is directly tied to these needs. Through our partnership with the National Equity Project, we are deepening our anti-racism and equity efforts by making inquiry cycles a core practice for addressing complex issues. We are intentionally centering student voice and engaging both students and staff to co-design systems where students can thrive. We are also strengthening social, emotional, and mental health supports. We are emphasizing the use of universal design for learning in classrooms to increase engagement and provide multiple ways for students to access content and demonstrate their learning. Co-teaching continues to expand across so that students with disabilities can gain access to grade level standards. In addition, we are developing targeted supports for long-term English learners and continuing multiple pathways for students to meet the college and career indicator. So these efforts are all outlined in our LCAP, and while we know there's still a lot of work to do, we are confident that our continued focus on elevating student voice, engagement, and high-quality instruction will lead to even stronger outcomes for all students. And that is it. Thank you.
Boy, that was a lot. Thank you. That's a lot of data. I don't know if you can see the smoke coming out of my ears, but my brain was grinding. I was trying to take notes and listen at the same time, and I just couldn't do it.
There's a lot of stuff in here.
That's a lot of stuff, but I appreciate it.
Did smell something burning.
It is getting late. So thank you, Ms. Baca, and I'll open it up to our student advisors. Do you guys have any questions or comments on all the fun stuff you just heard about?
How does the data for English learners and students with disabilities compare to previous years?
Overall, well, for our English learner progress indicator for English learners, it actually gone down in the last few years. And so that is one thing that we're trying to figure out, what kind of targeted supports can we put in place. Also, we've looked, Dr. Robinson and I have looked at the dashboard data for all of the high school districts in California, and we've identified one really that is doing really, really well for all of their English learners, and it's Campbell Union High School District. And so she had contacted their administrators and to see if we can visit the school site and see what is it that they are doing that we may be able to replicate here in the district. For our students with disabilities, we have also made a lot of gains, but it's still not enough. Really a lot of gain for graduation rate, which is great.
Thank you, Edward. Good question. Anybody else? Bianca? No? Okay, cool. I will turn it over to our board now. Mr. Andrew Lee, go for it.
Lots of data, and really, I don't really have a whole lot of comments other than, I see that so much of this really dovetails into the board goals that we focused on in the LCAP from last year. So I think as we continue to look at those different specific metrics that we kind of called out, I think that obviously we'll start to see over time in the dashboard, especially under the college and career indicators. And I think I just need to spend some time sometime soon just to look at the specific detailed data, because that's where, as you know, I emailed you with those questions. And so thank you so much for the link to the detailed data. I just need to spend some time in there just to really understand. And I think I'll have further questions when I delve into all of that. But I think looking at your key takeaways and the conclusions, it's pretty, I would agree. And these are the areas. And I think as we've heard from Mr. Zhao's presentation, we know that we are addressing these things at the individual school sites, and the fact that from a district leadership team, it is a strong focus to look at all this. It comes back down to just making sure that we're seeing we see the issues with the students need the most help, and make sure that the students need the most help, get the help that they need. Pretty simple So thank you very much for the presentation and for some really good data.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. And one comment or question, sort of a question really is, you mentioned the anti-racism equity work that's been done, and it's like a coalition between the students and the staff and different teams. What is your strategy for selecting students to participate in that work?
So right now, each of the school site have developed their own student equity team.
Okay.
And so it really depended on who volunteered at their school site. And also the leaders of that equity team are all different. So for instance, we have some classified staff leading the work. We have some principals, we have some counselors. And so we really left it to the school site and the willing on who would like to be part of this equity team. And their task is really to develop some safe to fail, basically, activities so that they can see what type of improvements can they make at their school site level.
Gotcha. Just from your own personal knowledge, do you know how many, like the distribution, specifically like looking like African-American students, do you know if any African-American students are part of these student bodies that are coming together?
Right now, I don't know who is part of the student equity team, but we can look into that.
Okay.
That's a good question, Marty.
Thank you.
Incredible. I mean, you went through 27 slides like that. Very informative, as usual. And I feel like you picked the colors, but I guess you really didn't. Some of the
Dashboard people did.
yeah. But so, and I really like that you're looking at the areas that need improvement and actually are seeking out school districts that are doing or that have shown improvement and trying to learn from them. I think it's really fantastic that you're doing that. So with the graduation rate for our students with disabilities, how are we going to tackle that? Or what does it actually indicate? I know on here it looks like orange, but maybe that doesn't say the whole story.
So one of the things that we are doing is the co-teaching. So we want to make sure that students have access to grade level standards and also careful programming of students to make sure that they have the courses that they need to graduate. Like what Mr. Zhao said, monitoring their grades. So, Westmore is texting their families to make sure that, that like, hey, here are the grades, what can we do? And so it's like multiple ways. Our wellness support team is also assisting with this and supporting our students. And so it's really like, it takes a village.
Wow.
To help our students.
Okay, thank you very much. I just feel like we're on track. And I really appreciate the key takeaway slides because it really tells us exactly how we're tackling this through our LCAP.
Yes, and if you can see, like a lot of these things are really our LCAP goals.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. I was boiling down what I was going to say based on what other folks have said. And I was going to focus on how we use this data to make LCAP goals, but somebody else said it first. But I'm glad that's happening. And I thank you for this work. And I thank you for translating it into LCAP goals, which was a huge part of what we do in the district. I don't have any questions. I don't have a lot of comments. This is a lot of data. It shows a lot of hard work. And my goal is to look at some of these things that concern me personally or concern me individually, and to revisit what I'm concerned about as we continue to make plans for the district. or at least as the district office continues to make plans and I serve my oversight role. So I hope that what I do is that I take this presentation and improve my oversight, which is why I'm here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Baca, thank you for listening to us over the past couple of years. You know, try to drill down on all this data that's coming in and really kind of focus in on all the details that we've been looking for, and then implementing that into our LCAP goals, because that's a lot of work to try to keep track of, and just to try to highlight all the achievements that we're doing as a district, but also to highlight some of the stuff that we still need to work on and kind of keep us up to date on that. It's a lot of data, and I just appreciate that you're as intimate as you are with it, because it's a lot. I was kind of taken aback just kind of at the beginning, the overview part of it, where it says that we're 34% of socially economically disadvantaged. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of people. That's just, yeah, it just goes to show you how tough it is, how tough, all of our jobs are to help raise these kids and give them what they need, and not knowing what it is exactly they need and try to figure that out. It's not an easy job. And then on top of it, we have a ton of English learners too. And that's just, that adds to the hard work. But, it looks like we're up for the task. I mean, everything that we've been doing, all the indicators that we're seeing, for the most part, everything's going up. And that's something to be proud of, I think, as a district. So I'm happy about that. The only thing that kind of stands out, obviously, are the suspensions. And I would like to see a little bit more on that, as far as, what type of suspensions they are. You could kind of see on that, second to last page there, who's being affected by those suspensions. And obviously those are just the cohort of kids that we don't want to see affected by those suspensions. And so it makes me curious as to why that's happening to these kids, when we're specifically trying to focus on equity for these groups of kids. So it's a little concerning. So I don't know, maybe at some point we could, aggregate a little bit of data just on that specifically, and just kind of know what's kind of going on there.
Yes, and so one of the things that Ms. Bestween and I talked about is perhaps talking with each of the site administrators and really looking at this data more closely, and have them kind of, really analyze like what is happening, what do they notice, and really find out more what is happening, what is the story behind these suspensions.
Yeah, for sure. It's really important, obviously, if we're going to try to fix that, right? So yeah, thank you for putting a plan into action. Really love the fact that you just mentioned that you're talking to Campbell Union about, seeing what they're doing that's improving their programs there for their English learners. That's great. That's a great start. I mean, somebody that's already being successful at it can help us get a jump on something like that. That's awesome.
Yes, so just I want to point out that in the dashboard data, under view additional details, you can actually choose, like if you just want a high school district, and if you just want to focus on suspension and they're green, it will give you like all of not only the districts, but also the school sites that have green. So you can, reach out to those districts and figure out, what it is that they're doing.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's really amazing.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me for now. Thank you again for the presentation.
One more question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With regards, going back to suspension rate for just a minute, I'm just seeing, since it is red for English learners and long-term English learners, is there some intersectionality with other subgroups, any specific racial, ethnic subgroups where that cross references? Because I would imagine there's probably some.
It's most likely Hispanic.
Okay.
Good. Thanks. All right, Ms. Brista.
I don't have a lot to say. Thank you so much for the presentation and all the details. And I just to kind of touch again on the suspensions, like we're going to look at the individual, like what's actually happening. Because when you look at the data and it's, even when we kind of get in, you really have to look at individual suspensions and individual school sites. And so we've talked about this. I'm really pleased that Ms. Beswino and Ms. Baca are going to really work with the principals on this, because it is something that we're focused on, and it is disheartening to see those numbers. So, we don't know. There are some suspensions, if there's a weapon at school, that's a mandatory suspension. So, we don't know. And so we just really need to delve in and look at what actually happened. But yeah, great job. Thank you. It was a really great presentation. I cannot believe you did that many slides. And I was actually able to attend to what you were saying. So that's great. Well done, teacher, Ms. Baca. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on up. 9C, I guess we could do 1 and 2. We'll start with 1. 9C1, Board Policy Update, Emergency and Disaster Preparedness Plan. Our Associate Superintendent of Student Services and Human Resources, Ms. Doreen Baswino.
Good evening. So first read for Board Policy 3515, Campus Security, is being updated to include language around security cameras, reporting and responding to threats, and including relevant stakeholders in decision-making.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. You want to take the next one?
Yeah. The second one, Board Policy 3516, Emergency and Disaster Preparedness Plan, is being updated to include that staff at all levels are involved in the development of the plan, and that there are plan adaptations for students with disabilities.
I like that one. Thank you.
We already incorporate that into our plans anyway when you present them to us, right? So we've been ahead of the curve. This is just formalizing something we're already doing.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Thank you. All right, any questions? All right. Well, if there's no considerations of future agenda items, I'd like to make a motion to
move to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Okay. It's pretty good. Last night the kid said, "How long do you think it'll be?" And I go,